The video you are about to watch includes the introduction to the second book of the Hourglass Universe trilogy. In the beginning there was a question. What is reality? The human mind is pushed to the deepest recesses of its existence with this question. This is an impulse that people cannot resist, and it is not just curiosity. This impulse is the effort of human consciousness to hear the universal echo of the soul. Every civilization, every individual, every conscious being has asked this question in different ways. Where am I? Who am I? How did I come into being? The texture of reality may be much more fragile than we think. Our perception of the world shaped by all these visual, auditory and sensory inputs may be a mental projection of a much deeper existence. Maybe the outside world is not external as we think, but a holographic reflection of our inner world. This book contains a multi-layered reality model shaped on a holographic basis. Does consciousness create the universe, or does the universe create consciousness? This question is not only a philosophical, but also an existential reckoning. If reality is a function of consciousness, then the universe we live in is only a form of probability. Who chooses this probability, and why this universe? If I were to claim that the mind creates the brain, this would be an absurd inference for many of you, because this sentence contains a discourse that is contrary to the definitions you believe in and know. If you have read my first book, you have understood something. I set out on this path not to retell the known, but to tell the untold. According to materialist thought, the brain creates the mind, and at the same time the brain is the place of the mind. The essence of this thought is as follows. The brain is a physical organ and works with elements such as neurons, synapses and electrical signals. The mind is a product that emerges from these physical activities of the brain. In other words, mental processes such as consciousness, thoughts and emotions are a result of the brain's work. Now I will tell you about a different brain-mind relationship. In this explanation, the brain is a universe-creating machine and a kind of converter. It creates our objective reality by organizing and transforming frequencies. The brain constantly changes places by switching between different states of consciousness in the pure mind field consisting of multiple layers of reality, that is, in the subconscious. I would like to make the above description more understandable for you by giving an example. Think of the television in your home. Sounds and images seem to come from the television. In reality, your television processes frequencies and signals and converts them into images and sounds. The signals and frequencies come from outside. This is not an absurd inference. It is the truth. Quantum mechanics describes the pure fabric of reality by mentioning four fundamental forces: gravitational force, weak nuclear force, strong nuclear force and electromagnetic force. The reality and objectivity we are in are formed by the interactions of these forces and are constantly updated. As a result, when the television breaks down, the sound and image are cut off, but the signal is still there. Other televisions are still constantly drawing data from the sea of frequencies and signals they are in. In other words, they continue to create a virtual reality by constantly converting the frequencies and signals within the bandwidth they can process. Brain equals television, mind equals a frequency field full of infinite possibilities. The world is an isolated frequency field created for a specific goal, and this field is an unprocessed potential consciousness field at the deepest layer. I have explained this subject in detail in my book The Universe in the Hourglass. This field contains infinite possibilities that have the potential to occur. We transform these possibilities into reality in different areas of reality with the choices we make. Basically, our identity is nothing more than a piece in the pure mind layer of the world. This is what we call our subconscious. The background area behind the visible of the world is a collective network structure created by all minds together. The past, the future are all together in this field. As I have said before, the brain is a universe creation machine and a kind of converter to it creates our objective reality by organizing and transforming frequencies. The brain is constantly changing places by subconsciously switching between different states of consciousness in the pure mind area consisting of multiple layers of reality, and consciousness is both the observer and the designer of the reality it is in. The most striking feature of consciousness is that it is the only structure that can observe itself. While all other physical processes can be examined from the outside, consciousness is experienced from the inside, which makes it unique and immeasurable. According to different disciplines, there are three basic approaches to the source of consciousness. Reductionist model. Consciousness is a product of the neural activities of the brain emergence model. Consciousness is a superstructure feature that emerges after a certain level of complexity. The non-dualism model. Consciousness is the fundamental reality. Matter is its derivative. The first two approaches are scientific perspectives, while the third interpretation is more of a philosophical and metaphysical interpretation. These three interpretations about consciousness describe its different aspects. The first interpretation, the neural activities of the central brain are a neuroanatomical, neurophysiological, and neurochemical process. The brain collects information from every point of the body through the neural network and reveals conscious awareness. According to the second interpretation, consciousness is a complex structure that emerges with complex cause-effect relationships. The third approach has an abstract and metaphysical perspective. I have explained the first two interpretations about consciousness in detail in the first book. In the same book, the third interpretation was partially explained through dreams and perception of reality. This book will be based on the third model as a narrative and will delve deeper into the non-dual model. Consciousness is the fundamental fabric of the universe. Just like the energy in the quantum field, consciousness is present in every corner of the holographic universe. In the book The Universe in the Hourglass, I have mentioned in detail the conscious etheric particle as the fundamental building block of the celestial sphere. For those who have read the first book, these definitions are already familiar concepts. Matter is the condensed form of conscious energy, and this density determines the physical properties of our reality. The brain is a simulation device that converts consciousness into matter. It creates a model of reality by coding the potential of consciousness with sensory inputs. This model produces different results for each individual. For example, two people feel the same event differently, so they have different thoughts and memories about the event. Reality is not constructed objectively, it is constructed internally. So what is the source code directory of this simulation device? This is where the divine software comes into play. Divine software destiny plan. Divine software is not only a religious or metaphysical concept. Etheric particle is a frequency that carries information. The content of the information includes options that show how the entity will shape the next moment. The entity constructs the present. By realizing one of these options, we know that etheric particle is a frequency that carries information. Consciousness is the wave form of this frequency. The brain is a converter and modulator that shapes the wave in. This sense the place where information is born is the subconscious mind region, which is the layer where consciousness is in its purest form. This region is the background area of consciousness. This area is a fluid area where codes and possibilities constantly emerge and disappear. Each code sequence is transmitted to the online consciousness by etheric particles. The brain continuously constructs reality by carrying it from one moment to the next in this way. If reality is a simulation, the soul is the player of this simulation, and the architects are the divine designers of the game. The soul's duty is not only to experience, but also to remember itself. It must remember the unity, the wholeness, the oneness that it came from the source, and be free by getting out of the simulation cycle. Each stage that the consciousness goes through is only a milestone in the process of remembering the information that the soul has forgotten. Consciousness evolves. All the processes that begin from the inanimate world until it turns into a human are only for learning and understanding. However, human consciousness exists to be tested with what it understands and learns, because it is the only tool that can remind the soul of who it is, so it is special. Layers of the mind. As I said before, the brain works like a television device and creates the reality of the layer of the mind it is online. The mind is a multidimensional structure with different layers of reality, and the micro-mind, that is, the individual mind, is a part of the collective mind, and the collective mind is a part of the macro-mind, that is, the matrix hierarchy. The soul experiences different layers of reality using the brain and the interactions of these three different minds. The purpose of the matrix hierarchy is to remind the soul of its own forgotten truth, because ultimately the soul is a lost being that is targeted to wake up and return to the source. So the soul's journey is not limited to this world only, it is a universal journey that includes multiple layers. Individual mind. The individual mind is called the smallest piece of mind. The individual mind is a two-layered structure. One basic main layer. Subconscious. It resembles the trunk of a tree. This layer is the unconscious mind layer, and the path of all alternative reality layers leads here because they all rise from the basic layer. 2 intermediate layers. I said that the basic layer resembles the trunk of a tree. Intermediate layers are also similar to the branches coming out of this trunk. Intermediate layers are alternative reality layers. These layers have different physical rules that are autonomous and independent of each other, and are basically reality areas connected to the unconscious mind layer. These areas create their own external reality with the harmonious work of consciousness and the brain. In this way, the soul has the opportunity to pass to a different reality area. Within the individual mind, the soul is like a sparrow wandering among the branches of the tree of the mind to which it is attached. The brain is a dazzling butterfly with colorful and patterned wings. The reason I describe it this way is because the brain is a seducer and center of attraction that creates different layers of reality and consciousness. It constantly lands on different branches of the tree, and the soul constantly follows it and lands on the branch where it lands. However, the ability to create alternative realities is only valid for the mind and brain structure that has evolved into the human body. This is not valid for animals and other living things. Although it is claimed that animals dream, this is not possible. The brains of animals, especially those living in nature, never go into a 100% off mode because they can be prey at any moment. A sudden sound, a smell or a touch can be dangerous, and they may stay away from their flock or offspring. That's why animals' sleep always carries a state of alertness. You can think of it as a waking sleep. For example, birds sleep with one eye open, dolphins only close half of their brains, rodents enter REM but can wake up immediately. This kind of half-open state prevents a complete loss of consciousness. In order for what we call a dream to occur, the senses must close to the outside world. The brain must completely turn inward and enter a state of unconsciousness for the reality it is in. The consciousness must forget where I am and who I am for a short time, But this is difficult for animals because the fear that someone may jump on me at any moment has always been active in the brain due to evolution, so the animal brain goes to sleep, maybe something comes to mind, but the consciousness resurfaces without reaching the real depth of the dream, which causes dreams to be in the form of short, instinctive visual associations. This situation does not seem like a dream, but like the habitual repetitions of neurons. Dreaming is a luxury in the evolutionary process of consciousness and is a situation specific only to human consciousness. This is because the sleep of non-human creatures is not continuous, but interrupted and fragmented. The determining factor here is the fear of being hunted or harmed. REM sleep has also developed in some animal species other than humans. For example, domestic cats, dogs, or some animals such as lions in the wild can be observed for 1 or 2 hours of uninterrupted sleep. This period is sufficient for REM sleep, but going into the deep REM state, which is a deep sleep state, poses a survival risk, so their brain is in a constant danger mode, keep REM short, stimulate instincts and then wake up mode. As a result, 1 or 2 hours of uninterrupted sleep may be physically sufficient for real dreams, but the necessity of animals to stay alert restricts the formation of conscious dreams, so short, intermittent visual revivals and repetitions at the reflex level occur. What animals see is not a real self-conscious dream world. In fact, we can compare this logic to humans. In very stressful times, in environments open to danger or in light sleep, even we either do not dream or forget because consciousness cannot fully dive. We imagine the individual mind as a tree with branches. The collective mind is a forest made up of these trees and is the whole picture. Every tree in the forest is connected to each other with cause and effect relationships. Just like in a real forest, the collective mind forest consists of different layers of reality from different heights, but the test of the soul is determined by the top layer of this forest, the black world and the white world below it, because these worlds are the main worlds of the mind. When these two worlds come into balance on the scales of the brain, the individual being passes to the upper consciousness state that can control the trunk of the tree and all the branches on it, which I call the unconscious mind. This is the individual awakening and the enlightenment that follows. In short, it is the soul remembering itself. I put the black world, that is, the world we are in, at the top of the consciousness hierarchy for a reason, because awakening and enlightenment first start in the black world and spread to every corner of the tree of the mind. I have talked about the concepts of the black world and the white world in detail in my book The Universe in the Hourglass.